starting prayer is on page 172 of the book Universal Prayers. At the top of that page, the first one on page 172. This is from the Shiva Mahimna Stotram. So I'll chant this stotra, I'll chant this sloka, and then I'll read the translation. Om Asitagiri samam syat kajjalam sindhu patre surataruvar shakha lekhani patramurvi लिखति यदि गृहीत्वा शारदा सर्वकालं तदपि तव गुणानाम् ईशपारं नयाति ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Using the biggest branch of the celestial tree as the writing instrument, the ocean as the ink pot, and the blue mountain as the ink, and using the whole earth as the writing surface, if the goddess of learning, Sharada, were to write your glories and continue to write until the end of time, until eternity, even then, O Lord, your glories cannot be fully described. Infinite indeed are your glories. Om peace, may there be peace and joy in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Okay. Today we are going to start chapter number, what chapter? 7. Chapter number 7. This chapter is called Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Chapter 7 is called, let me see, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Yogo Nama Saptamo Adhyaya. In this chapter, the first two verses, they describe the importance of this knowledge, which is the usual practice to create interest in the subject. The subject is described and its importance is pointed out. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Sattamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madasrayaha Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Jnasyasi Tatsrunu. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, this time the Lord does not wait for Arjuna to ask a question. In the next chapter, chapter 8, Arjuna asks a number of questions. 7 questions in a row he will ask in 2 verses. And then Bhagavan answers those 7 questions. And then we'll study that when we go to the next chapter. But in chapter 7, Bhagavan does not wait for a question, he starts. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the translation is, with the mind set on me and dependent on me and performing yoga, O Arjuna, hear how you will know me wholly without any doubt whatsoever. In this verse, 2 things are pointed out as being necessary to know God. First thing is, Mayi Asaktamanaha. Asaktamana means a person whose mind is interested in Mayi. Mayi means in me. The Lord is saying, we should be interested to know God. If the interest is not there, we can't do anything. The strong, not just interest, but strong urge, motivation must be there to know God. I must know God. That determination must be there. Otherwise, our attempt will be half-hearted and will not be successful. In devotional practice, Sri Ramakrishna says a person must have intense longing to know God. It's called Vyakulata. In Sanskrit, it is called Vyakulata, Bengali also. Vyakula means a person who is restless. Vyakulata means great restlessness to know God. At the end of the day, a person must feel one more day has passed and I have not done anything, I have not seen God. My life is being wasted in this way day after day. That feeling of distress, discontent must be there. Same thing about the desire to know God. I have not known God. So many years already passed in my life. That feeling is called Maya Saktamanaha, one who is deeply interested in knowing God. The deep interest is one requirement. Second requirement is Yogam Yunjan, practicing yoga. Yoga means, you can say in the previous chapter, Dhyana Yoga was described. The yoga of meditation was described. That yoga. Or any yoga in general, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga also. Yogam Yunjan. There is one more requirement, third one, Madashrayaha. Ashraya means refuge. Taking refuge in somebody is called Ashraya. Madashraya means taking refuge in God and God alone. No other source of support will come to our rescue in time of need. Even if they come, they won't be able to rescue us. God is the only source of support, ultimate source, final source, where we have to take refuge in God. That is also a requirement. So three requirements. Maya Sakta Manaha, person must be deeply interested in knowing God. Second thing is Yoga Myunjan, one must be practicing yoga, some kind of yoga. In this context, Dhyana Yoga. Third requirement is Madashrayaha, one must have taken refuge in God, Sharanagata. Must say God is the ultimate support. Other sources of support, they cannot be dependent upon. They sometimes help, sometimes don't help. And the help they can give is limited. Such a person can know God. How can a person know God? By practicing these three things. Yatha Mam Jnasyasi. Mam means me. How you can know me? How you can know me? Yatha Mam Jnasyasi. Asamshayam, without any doubt. With total clarity. Tat Srunu. Srunu means suno. In Hindi, suno. Srunu in Sanskrit. Hear from me, listen to me, how one can know me fully without any doubt by being interested in me deeply. Secondly, by practicing yoga. And thirdly, by depending upon me totally as the final refuge. That is sloka number 1. It's an introduction. Then second verse is also introductory in nature. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshamyasheshatah yajñātvānega bhūyōnyat jnātavyam avashishyate. Te means to you, aham vakshyami. You see the word vakshyami in the second part of the first line. Te aham vakshyami. That is the main clause. I am going to explain to you. Vakshyami means I'm going to explain to you. Talk to you in detail. What I'm going to explain to you, jnanam, to whom? Te, to you. I'm going to explain to you this knowledge, jnanam. Yat jnatva, by knowing which, this knowledge that Sri Krishna is going to impart in this chapter, by knowing that anyat bhuyaha jnatavyam na avashishyate. You see the word na hidden there? Neha na plus iha. Na means no, iha means now or here. Here, iha means here, or in this matter. Yat jnatva, by knowing which, Sri Krishna is going to teach something, somebody who can grasp it. If they know that one, then there's nothing else that remains to be known. Anyat, see the word anyat is written there. In the second line, the second part is a compound sentence. Bhuyaha anyat jnatavyam avashishyate. 4 words are there, combined according to rules of Sandhi. Bhuyaha means again, after knowing this knowledge which is going to impart. Anyat means another, something different. There's nothing different to be, remains to be known. Anyat jnatavyam, to be known. Na avashishyate, does not remain. That means, in plain language, if one understands the knowledge that I'm going to impart, for such a person, there is nothing else that remains to be known. That is the essence of Vedanta. That is called also Paravidya. By knowing that Paravidya, knowledge of the self, or knowledge of God, if you prefer, nothing else remains to be known. The same thing cannot be said of other subjects. If somebody studies chemistry, with high level of expertise, there are a lot more things to be known other than chemistry. They have to know how to manage their daily affairs. They have to know how to prepare food. They have to know other subjects. It's not all. But if you know God or Atman, nothing else remains to be known. Everything that is worth knowing will have been known. This is in the Upanishads. In the Upanishad, one Upanishad begins with this question. Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. So in the Upanishad, same topic has come. In one Upanishad, the students ask the teacher. When the students approach the teacher, they will ask this question. Oh, sir, teacher, please teach us that knowledge by knowing which nothing else remains to be known. That's how the students approach the teacher. Otherwise, limited knowledge, one subject, if you teach, then so many other subjects have to be known. That is not very useful. Teach us something, by knowing that everything will be known. Very interesting sentence in the Upanishad. Tasmin bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. Bhagava, oh teacher, sir, by knowing that there is nothing else to be known, please teach us that knowledge by knowing which nothing else remains to be known. That is how this knowledge is presented, ultimate knowledge. Then, earlier we saw 2 kinds of knowledge, Paravidya, Aparavidya. You are familiar with that, I hope. This is Paravidya. Aparavidya means all the worldly knowledge, whatever you study in universities and colleges. There only one branch can be studied in a lifetime. And then so many other things remain to be known. But not Paravidya. This what Gita teaches is Paravidya. Paravidya means supreme knowledge. Para means supreme, higher, highest. That knowledge, if it is known, nothing else remains to be known. This verse, second verse, is simply extolling the importance of this chapter, so that Arjuna becomes interested in studying this, whatever Krishna is going to teach, with a deep interest and with concentration. If the student is not fully interested and does not study with concentration, the study will not be fruitful. So to create that interest, so that Arjuna has the motivation to concentrate on what Krishna is going to say, This shloka is given. Okay, now we go to the shloka number 3. This is an interesting verse. Very few people indeed are interested in this knowledge. Most people are interested in worldly knowledge because it brings immediate benefit. If you do MBA, you'll get a very good job, good paying job in a corporate, in a business corporate company, and you can rise in the corporation ladder hierarchy, and you can become the vice president, CEO, and a lot of money and fame. But here, there is no such immediate benefit. If you study Paravidya, you will have inner development. You will enormous peace and joy that nothing else in you will come to you. Your life will, purpose will be fulfilled, but monetary benefit may not come, may or may not come. So this is not of interest to majority of people. Only a small number of people are interested in Vedanta study. That is being told in shloka number 3. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha. Very interesting verse. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Out of thousands of manushas, people, out of thousands of people, kaschit means a rare person, one here, one there. Out of thousands, sahasreshu, plural, many thousands. Siddhaye yatati, for perfection, even tries, begin to start some spiritual life, something in spiritual life. Out of thousands, only one here, one there. Yatatamapi siddhanam, of those few who begin to strive for spiritual illumination, of those few, mam kaschit tatvataha veti. Mam means me. Veti means knows. Only one rare person will know me in truth. Tatvataha, as I am. A truth as it is. Tatvataha. That means generally majority of population are interested in worldly life. Getting a good education, getting a good job, having a family, buying a house, acquiring property, and raising a family, children, grandchildren, success and promotion, fame, entertainment. This is what people are interested in. They strive hard for it. It's not wrong, but that is one way of life. But a small number of people, they may do this also, but in addition, they will strive for spiritual illumination. For them, God realization or spiritual illumination is very important. Those people are very few in number. In the Viveka Chodamani, some of you studied Viveka Chodamani, there is a very interesting verse. Shankara says there are 3 kinds of people. You take the whole population, 3 kinds of people are there. The majority of people, they live at the body, mind, intellect level, whole life. For them, fulfilling the needs of the body, leading a good life, having good food, good company, good family, success, fame, this is all they are interested in. Nothing higher or more. That is one category of people. To them, body is the ultimate thing. So the shloka is Deho hamityeva jadasya buddhihi. Jada means a person who cannot think deeply on any matter. Superficial thinking. Jadasya buddhihi, a person who is limited thinking capacity. Such a person, what does he or she think? Aham dehaha iti. I am the body. If you ask average person, who are you? Including some of us also, I can include. If somebody asks, who are you? So I'm the body, I'm this person, my name is so-and-so, I live here. This majority of people are like that. But there is a second category of people. They are a little bit more informed. They are Dehe Chajive Vidushastvaham Dhi. I am a body, I have a soul. Body is not all. I have a soul. There's spiritual component in my personality. That is a additional development. They are more informed. Body is not the only ultimate thing. There is a spiritual part to my personality. There is a soul. There is a jivatma is there. There are second category of people, better informed. But there's a third category of people who are very small in number. Such people are firmly convinced that they are the Atman, they are not the body and the mind. They are very few in number. It is that kind of people that Sri Krishna is referring to in shloka number 3. Viveka Vijnanavato Mahatmano Brahma Ahamiti Sada Smriti Buddhihi Brahmamiti Sada forget this word. Viveka Vijnanavato Mahatmano Brahmamiti Sada Atmani. Their mind is always fixed in the Atman. They are fully convinced that they are the Atman, they are not. They don't think they are the body and the mind. Such people are very small in number. Those who have reached the goal of realization, who reach self-knowledge, Atma Jnana, those who have, they don't make the mistake of thinking they are the body mind. Such people are very small. That's what Sri Krishna is saying in verse number 3. Yatataamapi siddhanam. Of those few even strive to reach spiritual goal, illumination. Kaschit, a rare person, one person here, one person there, tattvataha mam veti, knows me in truth, in reality, as I am. So that is also a sort of introductory verse only, just to highlight the importance and rarity of people who study Vedanta with a serious purpose, serious seekers, not academic study, serious seekers, sadhakas. They are very rare. Now the real topic begins with verse number 4. 4 onwards, the topic of chapter 7 begins. Before I go to verses 4 and 5, I will just introduce the topic in this way. See, in this universe, we have infinite number of beings, all of different kinds. No two of them are identical. Even if you take identical twins, the differences between them. No two things are alike. If you take two leaves, adjacent leaves in the branch of a tree, they are different. No two leaves are alike. So much variety, infinite variety is there. How many things? Infinite things are there. If you count people, only people, there are how many? 6-7 billion people right now living. But if you count all the animals, if somebody takes census of animals, how many animals are there of all kinds? Elephants and tigers and birds and flies and snakes, and count how many will be there? Not possible to get a number. So many. If you add trees, how many trees are there in the whole universe? How many things are there? Infinite. So all these things that we see, human beings, all kinds of human beings, good people, bad people, men, women, all nationality. Human beings, one category. Animals, second category, all kinds of animals, all species. Plants and trees, third category. And inanimate objects in nature. Plus natural objects in nature, like the sun, planets, moon is a satellite, sun is a star, and in the solar system, other planets are there, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune. And like this, other solar systems are there. Like this, in this galaxy, Milky Way galaxy, like this, other galaxies. See how many things are there? Now, all these things are made up of only 5 things. In the periodic table of Vedanta, only 5 elements are there. The chemistry periodic table, maybe 100, more than 100 elements are there. And those are listed in verse number 4. That's the introduction. Okay, let me read verse number 4. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kham mano buddhirev cha ahankara iti yam me bhinna prakritirashtadha. This is a very interesting and important verse. This and the next one. Here the 5 elements are listed in the first line. Bhumihi means earth. Earth means solid matter. Apaha means water. Analaha means fire. Vayu means wind. Kham means space, sky or space. Those 5 elements are the main ingredients of everything. Everything is made up of these 5 things. And then 3 more things are added. Manaha, Buddhi, Ahankara. Those are made up of these 5 things in a subtle manner, subtle matter. And those 3 plus 5, 8 things are there. 8 things are listed in the sloka number 4. Now, these 8 things form the material component of all beings. If you will take any being, a human being, an animal, plant, or inanimate object, there are 2 parts in it. A material part and a spiritual part. Even in stones, there is a spiritual part that is hidden, you can't see it. In people, spiritual part is more manifest. In the gospel, Sri Ramakrishna says, God is manifest to the maximum extent in human beings. He's present in animals too, in plants too, inanimate objects too. But it is hard to see his presence there. In people, it is very easy to see the presence of God. This is what Sri Ramakrishna said in the gospel. So that is what these 8 things are, the material part. And besides them, there is a spiritual part, which is going to be described in the next verse. So the conclusion is, the summary is, all beings in this universe are made up of 2 components. One is the physical or material component, or material part, that is described in verse number 4. This verse number 5 describes the spiritual part. This topic will come again in chapter 13 and chapter 15 also. So let us see what it is called. There is a name for this material part. Bhumira, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, 5 elements. Manaha, Buddhi, mind and intellect. Ahankara, ego. All these are parts, functional parts of the mind. Iti iyame ashtadha prakritihi. Eightfold. Ashtadha means eightfold. 8 parts are there in this part of nature. Now, this is all material in nature, including the mind. Buddhi, they're all material, fine matter only, according to Vedanta. Mind is also matter, not consciousness. Consciousness enables him to function, but it is different. In the next verse, verse number 5, the first 2 words belong to the verse number 4. Apara yam, verse number 5. Apareyametatvanyam prakritim viddhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Mahabaho, Arjuna with great arms. Apara yam. Yam means this. This means the feminine pronoun. Prakriti is feminine noun. So yam is used. Yam apara. Yam means this. This means the previous 8 things listed in the verse number 4. These 8 things listed in the verse number 4, they are called apara prakriti, apara yam. Those 2 words belong to the 4th verse. These 8 things listed in verse number 4, they are called apara prakriti. Apara vidya, apara prakriti. Apara means not supreme. That means material in nature. We need matter, otherwise how can body cannot exist without matter. Then, other than this, itas to anyam. You see the word there, itaha to anyam. Sometimes the words are combined, 4 or 5 words are combined, it may appear confusing, but you have to separate them. In this sloka number 5, the first part, aparaya matastvanyam, is made up of 5 different words. Apara, yam, itaha, tu, anya. You separate them, then it becomes easy to understand. Apara, yam, these 8 things listed in the verse number 4, they are called apara prakriti. That is one previous part. Itaha, anyam. Other than this, other than apara prakriti listed in verse number 4, itastvanyam, me para prakriti vidhi. There is para prakriti also. Me means mine, amara. My para prakriti also exists. Whose para prakriti? Me means who is speaking? Ishvara, the Lord is speaking. God has 2 kinds of prakritis. One is para prakriti, one is apara prakriti. Apara prakriti listed in verse number 4 is all the material part of our bodies and everybody. Para prakriti, which is described in verse number 5, is the consciousness part. That's very important. Both are necessary for a being to function. If only my body is there, no consciousness there, I cannot function. If only consciousness is there, no physical matter is there, then there is nothing can be seen. Both are necessary. The 2 parts are there in all the bodies, including human body, animal body, plant body, inanimate body. So the para prakriti, consciousness part, is described in verse number 5. What is that one? Jiva bhutam mahabaho. Jiva bhuta means the whole being, and all beings are sustained by this consciousness. Jiva bhutam sustains the whole universe. Yaya idam dharyate, idam jagat dharyate. The consciousness part, which is called para prakriti, sustains all the bodies and the whole universe. If it is not there, nothing functions. Now, in the Upanishad, in Gita also 15th chapter, there is a verse which says, the sun is shining so brightly in the sky, producing so much energy, which supports all activities on this earth. No, where does the sun get its power to burn? He gets his power to burn from the Lord, from Bhagavan, from Ishvara. That will come in chapter 15. We'll come to that later. So every body has 2 components. I'll summarize verses number 4 and 5. If you take any body in this universe, whether it is the sun in the sky or the moon or any star or planet or the earth, Mother Earth, or any tree, any person, any being, any worm, if you take any, it has 2 parts in it. One is the physical material part. It's called apara prakriti. Apara means physical. Second part, which is essential, is para prakriti, consciousness partness. When these 2 are combined, then the being functions. If only physical matter is there without consciousness, it will not do anything. Even in stones, consciousness is there. It's not very well manifest, so we don't see it, but it's there, hidden in it. Now, both of these prakritis belong to the Lord Parameshwara, Supreme Lord. That comes in the next verse. You go to verse number 6. Etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham krishnasya jagatah prabhava pralayasthatha. The Lord is speaking. Bhutani, sarvani bhutani. You see the word sarvani bhutani in the first line. All the beings in this world. Upadharaya means understand. Understand, O Arjuna, that all the beings in this universe. Etad yonini. Yoni means source or cause. Or have as their cause, as their source, these 2 prakritis. Whatever subject, whatever body you take, object you take, it is made up of Paraprakriti, Aparaprakriti. That's what the first line says in sloka number 6. Aham means Ishvara, Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord. Aham, Krishna se jagata. Krishna means all, whole. Of the whole world. Krishna se jagata, of the whole world. Prabhavaha, I am the source. And Pralayaha, I am the destination in all the beings, and they come back to me and merge in me. That means the Lord is speaking now. Two kinds of Prakriti were described in the verses 4 and 5. Apara Prakriti, material part, made up of 8 different things. Para Prakriti, which is consciousness part in all the beings. These two are the source of all the beings. Every being in this universe is made of these two things. Every being in the universe, whether it's be a planet or a human being or a worm or a tree or anything, is made up of these two things, Paraprakriti, Aparaprakriti. Consciousness part, material part. And who owns these two Prakritis? To whom they belong? Me Prakriti, me means of me. Who is that speaking? Supreme Lord Parameshwara. So the Lord has these two aspects, Paraprakriti, Aparaprakriti. All the beings are made of combination of these two powers, Paraprakriti, Aparaprakriti. That is these 3 verses, 4, 5, and 6. The same idea comes in chapter 13. Same idea comes in chapter 15. Everything is made up of 2 parts, consciousness part, material part. Okay, let me get some water. My throat is becoming dry. And in the second line of verse number 6, Bhagavan says, I am the origin, source of all the beings in the whole universe. Here it says, Aham Krishnasya Jagataha. Krishna means whole, all. Jagata, of the whole world. I am the Prabhavaha. Aham Prabhavaha. I am the origin. Everything originates from me. He is the source. Pralaya Sthata. Pralaya means dissolution. When all the beings dissolve, people die, plants die, animals die, planets also die, stars also die, galaxies also die. They won't merge into the black hole. So when anything dies, where does it go? It goes back to the source from where it came, namely to the Lord. This is directly from the Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad says, there's a very nice sentence in the Taittiriya Upanishad saying exactly this. There it says, Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisammishanti tad brahma tad vijijñāsasva. Beautiful sentence in Taittiriya Upanishad. Where it says that from which all the beings, whole universe comes out, emanates, that by which the whole universe is sustained, lives, by whose power it lives, and that unto which everything goes back and merges at the end, that is Brahman, Tad Brahma. That is to be known, Tad Vijijñāsasva. Jignasa means inquiry. What is Brahman? Brahman is one, original source of everything. Everything comes from Brahman, everything is sustained by the power of Brahman, everything goes back and merges into Brahman. That is the knowledge that is being imparted here. So verses 4, 5, and 6. Let me summarize again. Everything in this world is made up of 2 parts. Material part, consciousness part. Material part is called Apara Prakriti. It has 8 components in it. 5 elements, mana, buddhi, ahankar, 8 things. Material part. Consciousness part is para prakriti. When these two things are combined, a being comes. All beings are made of these two things. From Brahma to the blade of grass, Brahma is Dhamma Paryantavani. And who owns these two prakritis? Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord. They are his two powers. Now, before we go further, there's a little bit of a, I would not say complication, but a finer point. We go back to verse number 4. First part of verse number 4. I saved it until this point because I wanted to get the main point through. Now, this is additional finer point. The 5 things listed there, Bhumi, Apaha, Analaha, Vayuhu, Kham. Bhumi means earth, solid matter. Apaha means water. Anala means fire or energy. Vayu means air. Kham means space, 5 things. These 5 things exist at 2 different levels, which is not mentioned in the verse, but in the commentary it is mentioned. You will come across this in your reading, so you have to know what it is. These 5 elements exist in 2 different states. Chemistry people can understand this better. One is in a subtle, pure, nascent state. Air is pure air, not combined with any other element. And space is pure space, not combined with anything else. Vayu, Bhumi is solid matter, is pure solid, nothing else. Like that, water will be pure, nascent, unmixed with anything. In that state, the 5 elements are called tanmatras. A new word is being introduced. Tanmatra. Tanmatra means that alone. No other combination with any other element. Each element is by itself nascent state, in pure, pristine, nascent state. That is called tanmatra. That is what being mentioned here in the verse number 4. But that's not the only way in which they exist. They often combine with each other in a particular proportion. The air combines with the remaining 4 elements. Space combines with remaining 4 elements. Water combines with remaining 4 elements. Like that one. And all the 5 elements combine with the remaining 4 elements. Then they become gross elements. Sthula bhuta. Sthula means gross. First it was called tanmatra or sukshma bhuta. When they are by itself, when the element is by itself without combination, combining with anything else, it is called tanmatra, that alone. And it is also called sukshma bhuta, subtle element, pure state. Then, better bring a chair because sit down on this chair. When they combine with each other in a particular combination, according to a formula, they become gross elements, then they are called sthula bhuta. Sukshma bhuta, sthula bhuta. They are also called tanmatra when they are pure. Sukshma bhuta or tanmatra, sthula bhuta. Gross element, fine element. Now, a little bit more detail is there is optional. You can tune it out if you don't like it, what I'm going to say. How do they combine in what proportion? 1/2 of every element. As I said, this extra information, not in a commentary, but sometimes you come across this in other books. So, in what proportion these sukshma bhutas, subtle elements, combine among themselves to become sthula bhutas, they become gross elements. A very particular formula there. 1/2 of each element combines with 1/8 of the remaining 4 elements. As I said, this extra information, if it is too much complicated, don't worry about it. You're not going to be any exam on this one. 1/2 of air combines with 1/4 of Vayu, 1/2 of Akasha combines with 1/4 of Vayu, Oh, sorry, 1/8 of Vayu, 1/8 of water, 1/8 of fire, and 1/8 of space. So half plus 4 times 1/8 is 1. This formula is called Panchikaranam. There's a book called Panchikaranam that describes it in detail. As I said, this is not really essential information, but you may come across it in some books, or you may wonder what it is. So anyway, the 5 elements and the 3, Mano, Buddhi, Ahankara, 8 of these form the physical material part of all the beings. Consciousness part is called Paraprakriti. Paraprakriti, Paraprakriti. And these belong to Supreme Lord Parameshwar. This is all the summary of the 3 verses 4, 5, and 6. If you have questions about this, you can ask me in a few minutes. We'll have time for questions. Now we go to the next verse. 5, 6 begins. Verse number 7. This is also very easy. There's nothing really difficult here. Verse number 7. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Very nice verse for meditation. Once I gave a Sunday talk on this second line of this verse number 7. It says, the Sunday talk was called the garland of beads. So why this topic is here is described. Mattaha means other than me, different from me. Anyat kinchit parataram nasti. Anyat means different, nothing, there's nothing other than me, different from me, which is parataram, which is superior to me. Who is saying this one? Lord Parameshwara. O Dhananjaya, Mattaha anyat kinchit parataram nasti. Other than me, different from me, there is no other higher being. Parameshwara means Supreme Lord. He is the ultimate. That we all already know already. There is nothing new, but it is here. Second line of verse number 7. This is the interesting line, second line. He gives an imagery for us to visualize and meditate upon. Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Mayi means in me, in the Lord. Idam sarvam. The word idam means this pronoun. In Vedanta, idam means this whole universe. This whole universe. Idam sarvam mayi protam. Protam means strung together. He gives an example how they are strung together. Manigana sutra eva. Sutra means what? A thread. If you have a necklace or a garland made of flowers or a necklace made of beads, there's one thread that goes through all the beads or through all the flowers. Only one sutra, only one thread. But the beings are meant. Just as in a garland, there are so many flowers strung together by one thread which passes through all of them, or just as in a necklace of beads, so many beads are there. They may have each different color, sizes, and shape. The beads, they may be made of stone or glass or diamond or whatever it may be. So many beads are there. Through all of them, only one thread passes, holding them together. Otherwise, they're all different things scattered around. So what makes a garland or a necklace is the thread brings them all together, holds them together. In the same way, in this whole universe, each one of us, not only people, each of the beings, each animal, each person, each plant, each tree, each mountain, each river, each planet, each star, all of these things are so many infinite number of beads. They're all held together, strung together by one common thread. Who is that common thread? The Lord Himself. Now, how is it possible? One Bhagavan present in all the beings, holding us together. We are all parts of one huge cosmic garland. worn by the Lord, and he is this cosmic sutra. Sutra means a thread. So in you, me, and everybody else, in every worm, in every star, in every object in the universe, same divine is being present, is present. Is the one holding us together, just like the thread holds together all the different beads in a necklace. Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. You can visualize this one. What is the purpose of saying this one? That means spiritually we're all connected. May not be physically. Physically we're all separate. We're not connected. Spiritually we're all connected, held together, because one thing common to all of us is the same God's presence in all of us. He is the thread running through all of us, holding us together. We are all together. Spiritually, we are all together, connected. Each one of us connected to everything else. Physically, we are all separate. Okay, have to be separate. So, the purpose of this shloka is this one. At the physical level, every object is different. Every object is different. Countless number of objects are there. On the spiritual level, they all converge into one. We're all one. Spiritually, we're all one. Physically, we're all separate. So the spiritual oneness, it is the cause of, it is the basis for all human relationships. Not only human relationship, or relationship with any object in this world, with a stone, with a dog, with a cat, with another person, good person, wicked person. All of these relationships are defined by the knowledge that we are all spiritually connected, related. So what does it mean? In chapter 6, we studied all of that one. There's something called the golden rule. The golden rule, if you remember the shloka, I'll give you in a moment. We studied it in last, but there's 2 classes before this class. I'll give you the number. 32, chapter 6. The basis for that interrelationship, not only among human beings, but with all other objects, is this. It is described in 7:7. The same Bhagavan, Parameshwara, Supreme Lord, is present in each one of us, connecting us all inseparably, bringing us together. Therefore, we should see His divine presence in all. That we saw in verse number 30 in chapter 6, 30-31. Chapter 6, verse 30-31. There, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, he who sees me in all, and all in me, to him I were never lost. Yomam Pashiti Sarvatra. So that is the purpose of this shloka. Spiritually, we are connected. Therefore, we should treat everybody as if we are dealing with the Lord Himself. He is present in everybody. That person may be an unpleasant person, wicked person, then we don't have to get close. From a distance, you say, God is in you, but you don't know. You stay there, I stay here. From distance, I bow down to you. When you see a tiger, don't go to the tiger. When you see a ferocious wild animal, don't go near that. From a distance, you go down. You stay there, I stay here. But recognize divinity in every being in this inanimate objects included. So what is the implication of this knowledge? You have to be generally with inanimate objects, with animals, with plants, with people. So simple things in our daily life, like closing the door. When you close the door, some people slam the door, the whole building shakes. It happens in our center. When people leave the building or enter the building, the front door, they just slam it. We're sitting in the sitting area, things. That is not gentleness. In the door also, the same divinity is there. When you do puja, tomorrow you are doing special puja. If you are observing, you will see we offer flower to the doors. Dwara Devata Bhyo Namaha. Why we offer flower to the doors? We are worshipping Rama tomorrow. We are going to offer flower to the door. Why? In the door also Rama is present. Rama not only present in the photo we are worshipping or image, Rama is present in the door. Symbolically, we recognize God's presence even in the door. That says we can't worship everything, every wall, every window, we cannot worship symbolically. That is the implication. So when in our relationships with other people, with animals, with plants, inanimate objects, with everything, we have to remember the divine presence in all. We're all connected together by the divine presence, like beads are connected together, held together by the sutra, the thread. The Lord is the sutra. Okay, we will stop here. And if you have questions, otherwise I will ask you a question. Whether you want to ask me a question or should I ask you a question, you decide. Okay, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Volunteering. Anyone of you, can you point out one verse in chapter 6 which made impression on you, which you can put into practice? Any verse in chapter 6? Anyone?
Just now you mentioned
6:30.
Yes. Will you please?
Jo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam ja mai pashyati tasyaham na prancha. So sacha mena pranshayati, something like that. Swamiji, I want to tell you something about this shloka. Now that we have talked about it, when I joined Gita class in the temple, this was the shlok that you were doing when in 98. And then what happened, when the Gita finished and there was Havan and it was repeated in the Havan, and Havan started very early, I came to the temple at 11 o'clock. When I was entering the door, this shlok was being recited.
Special
it happened twice, same beginning for me.
Beautiful shloka.
Isn't that amazing?
So it means we have to see the God's presence in everything, everybody.
Yeah, that of course. Right now, when you told it is also in inanimate objects and all, you know, suddenly I felt I am surrounded with God. All.
Yeah. Supposing inanimate object, how to be gentle, you want to keep a cup of glass on the kitchen counter. You can just slam it there with a big noise, or you can keep it gently. Thank you for serving the water.
That is true. That sometimes one doesn't remember, but we should.
So with every object, when we deal with animal, plant, or cat, or dog, or person, even a wicked person, you don't have to be friendly and too close. From a distance, you say, God is present in you. At this time, you are not aware of it, but I am seeing God's presence in you. Stay there, be well. May good happen to you. You pray for wicked people, not hate them. If God gives them good buddhi, then they will become wise people. So we can pray for them. They also become wise people, nice people.
So
Swamiji, the sentiment of respecting insentient objects, when we do that, I have realized that we suddenly develop respect for anything and everything in life. When you
cannot.
Okay, sorry. When we give respect to the insentient objects and treat them with dignity, like Divine Mother says, we develop respect for anything and everything around us. And that's, I have realized, increases my patience and tolerance for people and things surrounding me. Sorry, can you hear me? Did you hear me?
Can somebody please explain to me the question? The sound is not coming right here somehow.
Oh, I was just saying that when we respect the insentient things, non-inanimate, we learn to develop respect even for the sentient and just everywhere. It just increases our sense of respect for everybody.
Something wrong with your sound system. I can hear other people, but it's coming here. Sorry.
Connection, the connection is not good. So maybe you should write down send your question in writing.
Yeah, it's not a question. Just
Swami, I think she says that when you see consciousness and everything, you develop respect for sentient and insentient objects. Yes.
Sentient and insentient both. So for example, you see a book or something, don't push it away with your leg. Showing disrespect. You have to gently, nicely keep it in one place with a thankful, prayerful attitude. Everything has divinity, everything has consciousness, but they are not able to express, or we are able to express. That is what Sri Ramakrishna said. God's presence is maximum manifestation in human beings. We can express the divinity present within us. Saintly people do it 100%. We do it to some extent. But inanimate objects don't have that faculty. So they are there, consciousness is there, but they are inert by nature. So there is no communication possible. Still, you have to be gentle with them, especially with animals and plants.
Swamiji, my favorite one in this 6th chapter is 6.5. Uddare Atman Atmanam Atmanamava Sadhayet. That one.
Atmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So what does it mean? How do you explain the importance of that shloka 6.5?
Elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also enemy.
Right. Our own mind can be our best friend, can be our worst enemy. How it depends upon how we treat. We have to lift ourselves up by our own effort. Shankaracharya gives an example. There are two kinds of situations. One situation is where other people can help us. For example, I take a loan from the bank and you sign as the guarantor. And if I fail to pay the loan, you have to pay. You pay the loan I took. Then I can be free. But that is not all the time. If I become hungry, if you eat, my hunger will not go away. I have to eat myself. Spiritual life is like that. If I want to see God, if I want to make spiritual progress, I must myself strive hard and reach the goal. If other people do japa meditation, that benefit will not come to me. Atmana, Atmana Uddhare. Apply generally in life and everything. So self-effort is the key in spiritual life, in worldly life also. Very nice. 6.5 is a good verse.
For me, verse 7, Maharaj. Sitoshna Sukadukeshu.
Oh,
Tadama.
yeah, that is equanimity. Number 7, you say?
Yes, Maharaj.
Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita yutasna sakadyeshu tatha manapa manayo. Equanimity under all circumstances. Shita Ushna means the refer to physical experiences, sensations. Heat, Shita means cold, Ushna means heat. Sukha Dukkha refer to mental experiences. Sukha means happiness, Dukkha means unhappiness. When all these things happen, they happen alternately, or sometimes both of them happen together. Sukha Dukkha can happen at the same time. One part of life is going on very well, you are happy. Another part of life, something is bad, you are unhappy at the same time. So whatever be the condition, tatha mana apamanayoh. Mana means respect. Some people respect you. Apamana means some people disrespect you. What people do, how they react, we cannot predict or control. We have to maintain equanimity of the mind. That is the important message. Equanimity comes in, already come in the second chapter. It will come in several times in the subsequent chapters. Very nice verse. Very important. If nobody has any comments or question, we'll.
Maharaj,
Ah.
verse 40, where Shri
Oh,
Krishna gives.
what happens when a spiritual seeker dies without reaching the goal, before reaching the goal? Okay. So what does it say? Verse number 40.
It gives assurance that nothing bad will happen
Yeah.
and to that person,
Oh.
not in this world or the next world. So it's kind of a confidence giving verse.
Nagi kalyanakrit kaschit.
Durgatim Tata Gacchati. That is, I can tell you one thing.
Nothing, no spiritual progress is ever wasted.
See, when I was in the second year college, sophomore year they call, a long time ago, almost 70 years ago. Then our English professor quoted this verse. The second line, Nai Kalyana Krit Kaschit Durgatim Tada Gacchati. He was teaching us English literature, something, but all of a sudden, he quoted this line, Nai Kalyana Krit Kaschit. That line I did not know from where it was at that time, but it stuck in my mind. Later on, when I started Gita, I found this. Oh, this is the one that professor was quoting. I forgot to ask him, or I did not ask him what is the context in which you are quoting this Sanskrit version or English class. I didn't have that good sense to ask him and understand. That is, for a person who does good deeds, nothing bad will happen. Kalyanakrit means a person who does auspicious deeds, good deeds. To such a person, Durgatim Nagachati will never perish, he will not face evil. With the good deeds will produce good results. Very nice verse. Okay. Anything else or closing prayer?
Swamiji, even verse 26 is a nice one.
Oh, I like that one. Yato Nishtarati. So will you please explain that to us? So verse 26, chapter 6.
Yeah, verse 26.
So what does it mean?
Oh, it means that anytime the mind is fickle, you can't change it, but every time it goes anywhere, you have to make a conscious effort to bring it back.
Bring it back.
The self within.
Make it dwell on the subject of meditation. Very nice, very practical.
Yeah.
You have to do it every time you sit down for meditation. Very interesting and very practical verse. I'm glad you pointed it out. 626.
In the same 26, Swamiji, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that if the mind goes somewhere else, then take Krishna over there. If you're not able to bring the mind back, then take Sri Krishna to the mind. That way, it will be infused with the Sri Krishna's divine qualities.
Yes.
I hope you can hear me. The second thing I wanted to say, Swamiji, was that it's ideal to see the God in everybody, but one must be keeping Mahud and his mad elephant in the mind. Some common sense, in this day and age, in Kali Yuga.
When you apply this, trying to see God in everyone, you have to be careful, because in evil people, also God is present, but they are not aware of God's presence. They don't believe in it. So if you get too close to them, then it may not be good for us. So you have to be from a distance. You say, mentally you say, oh, God is present in you, but you are not ready to see that one. From here, I go down to you, but you stay there and I stay here. I'm not going to get close to you. Dura Deva Namaskaram Karomi, like this you should say. Okay, let us say the closing.
Swamiji, number 35.
35.
35, yeah. Asangsayam Mahabaho Salam Upasena tu kantya vairagyana cha gijjate.
Abhyasena tu kaunteya.
Yeah, vairagyana cha
What
gijjate.
did it say?
Yeah, so that is that it is very hard to control our mind.
Control the mind, yes.
Yes, but if you keep practicing and you try to have more distance to the and the other positions or the anger and other things, you can slowly control it.
By abhyasa and vairagya, repeated practice,
Yes.
you can control the mind by doing two things. One is abhyasa, repeated practice, as explained in 626. Whenever it goes out someplace, bring it back. That's the abhyasa. Vairagya means stopping to take interest in those things which are of interest in the past, but not right now. Worldly affairs. At one time I was interested, so the mind is used to think about those topics. But now interest is only spiritual life. I don't want to think about it. So giving up attachment to those worldly objects and thoughts. Those two things we have to do to obtain concentration during meditation.
Right.
Okay. Closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramayah. Sarve Bhadrani Ma Kaschid Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy. Somebody is not muting. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May all realize and practice what is noble, auspicious, and dharmic. May no one be subject to misery. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. Tomorrow